Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
Welcome to our half century. Episode 50 of Daftaboutcraft, brought to you with hopsathome.co.uk. And here to talk all things beer, your usual lineup, me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
And thank you very much indeed for joining us on this celebratory episode. Not that we're doing, we haven't got a birthday cake and we're not popping the corks or anything, but it's nice to reach 50 episodes, isn't it?
Yes, although in Simpson style, we are actually technically past 50, aren't we? We are. When you tack on our bonuses and whatnot.
Yeah, it's probably about 55, isn't it? But no, I think when we started this podcast, we never really had any expectations about where it would go and how long we'd be doing it for, did we? We just thought, let's do a podcast and drink some beer and talk to some nice people, and that's what we've been doing for 3 years.
I think that's where it's stayed at that, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, which we're happy with, aren't we?
Definitely.
And on this episode, we've got coming up for you all of our usual features and also a chat with Rhys Smith, who is the head brewer of Caps Off Brewery in County Durham. That's a really fascinating conversation, actually, about all things Caps Off and about the industry in general. Sam from Copper Beach, a brewer's wife, will be along with a humorous tale, and a tale that sort of typifies being a brewer's wife. You just get all sorts of things flung in your direction at the drop of a hat, and you just have to deal with them, and you'll be hearing all about that. We've got any other business coming up. We've got Tried and Tested, and we'll kick it off, as we usually do, in true Daftaboutcraft style, with the feature that we call Brew to Me, where we get a beer from a brewery we haven't sampled before, crack it open, see what we think of it, and then somebody from the brewery joins us to tell us all about what they're up to as well. Dave, you usually start, so you can start again, and what have you got?
On this occasion, I am down in Cornwall for St Ives Brewery. Now, St Ives have been around for well over a decade, actually. They started in 2010, so they're one of these breweries that would sort of have traditional roots and have come on to the craft scene in due course. And Callum, who we'll hear from later, sort of touches upon that when he says that they've had to learn about these styles of beers, and they got a new kit last year as well and things like that. So they're sort of new to doing craft, but not necessarily new to doing brewing. And the beer that I've gone for from a lovely selection that I was sent, and it's a selection that covers pretty much everything, is Mean As, which is a double dry hopped New Zealand IPA with Raku, Motueka and Pacifica hops, and it is 6%.
Weirdly enough, I have drunk a beer today that had 2 of those hops in it.
Really?
So it'd be really interesting to see what you make of this.
Now, so Motueka I'm pretty familiar with. Raku increasingly. Pacifica's probably the one I've seen the least of, I would say.
That was the one I hadn't really come across much before.
There's the other one, isn't there? Is it Rakanda, and then there's YT as well?
Oh, yeah.
New Zealand hops.
New Zealand hop. I find that beers with New Zealand hops, I generally really get on with well. I really enjoy them.
There is a slight difference, isn't there, in their profiles? You can tell that there's... Yeah. While they're fruity, they're a bit different here. This one, I get more of I do get citrus, but actually it's interesting. It's one of those things. Am I predisposed? Because I listened to what Callum was saying just before, because he cracks a beer to enjoy with us, and he talked about lime, and I smell a lot of lime now.
Power of suggestion.
That's interesting. It is juicy, but then dry hop comes in just before the end. It hits it sort of 3 parts of the way through, I would say, before mellowing off again. When I think of a double dry hopped one, I sort of think you get fruit punch and then you get the bitter end. This is fruity, but the fruit is a little bit muted, and then the dry hop comes through. I don't mind it at all. I haven't had a dry hop beer for a little while, actually. So it's nice to get some bitter in the back of it again.
So the one I tasted earlier, actually, it sounds very similar. Ended with a slight bitter note. The nose was quite fruity, but there wasn't much fruit to taste up front.
That's exactly how this beer is. Nice fruity nose. The fruit taste subdued, but not in a critical way. And then the dry hop comes through. I like that. I like that a lot. And Callum likes it as well, and he'll tell us all about it now.
Hiya, Dave. It's Callum here from St Ives Brewery. I'm going to be talking through our beer Minas. It's a double dry hopped New Zealand IPA. I believe you've been sent it and enjoyed it. It's using the hops Rakau, Motueka, and Pacifica for quite a complex experience. So I'm just going to crack it open here. Pour it out. So upon appearance, nice, tight white head, strong haze. In the aromas, we're getting citrus, backed up by like a herbal notes. Some would say basil or a pesto-y thing, but the strongest thing in the four is various citrus. I get sort of a lime orange, probably a citrus fruit that doesn't exist, but it's hops, isn't it? Nice 6% lends quite a lot of body. Good addition of wheat notes. Make that head last for ages. The hops in this lead to a real tang for me. That's quite satisfying. Even though it's hazy and quite well dry hopped, I wouldn't call it a Nipa necessarily, because there's a good bittering addition to sort of balance out. So it's more of a classic IPA within that way, but rounded out with some more modern Southern Hemisphere hops. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys think of this one. I'm quite happy with it. It's the second iteration of this beer. We brewed it a little while ago. These styles of beer are quite a recent thing for us as a brewery at St. Ives. Essentially, we moved on to a new kit, getting on for a year ago now. It was October 2022. And I think we come on leaps and bounds in this style, learnt a lot of lessons about how to treat this style of beer. And yeah, it's just tasting bang on at the moment. We got it in a really good state. It was canned in July, so it's relatively fresh, but not so fresh that it's harsh. It's smoothed out nicely. Really enjoying this one myself on this rainy Cornish Thursday evening.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Callum, for the lowdown on that particular beer. In the glass, Dave, what does it look like? Is it clear or hazy? Or
It is hazy. It says on the back of the can yellow. I'd agree with that. It is yellow hazy. When I was talking to them, I said I liked the sound of this beer, and they'd done a West Coast beer which I think has some coffee tones to it, which I've also got. As I say, they sent me a lovely box which had those beers, and they've also got some cool beers, and I sent a couple of those up to you, didn't I? There's a lager and sort of a session pale in 330s, and then they do 440 cans as well. And I know they've got in their traditional range, they've got some bottled stuff as well, so they sort of cover all the bases off.
I had the American Pale last night, and also I think it was a Pilsner as well.
Yes,
in the 330 Meal, was that called?
Yes, that sounds right.
That's it, yeah. Really nice, solid beers, yeah.
I'd say this is a bit better than solid. I know what you mean. I think I had one of the cool ones and I thought that was solid, but this is a step above that, and you can see why, because I put it in the 440 and whatnot. But I like this a lot. I'll remember this a bit because of the hops.
I'll tell you what's interesting as well, the fact that you mentioned the words core range, and this is something we picked up on our last episode, the Northern Ireland episode, where nearly every brewery we featured had a core range now, and more and more breweries are now doing core ranges. So it's interesting that these guys are as well, and I think it's becoming important.
I think it keeps the lights on, doesn't it? If you can get one or two of those core ranges that people will go back to, and also they're good gift options for people who might not know. That's why they are core beers, isn't it? They're going to be the ones that you get associated with, and then that gives you the license to go and do sort of slightly more out there stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can see why people do it. Absolutely get it 100%. So it sounds like you're impressed with that then.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm now intrigued to know where you're going. But yeah, it's a big thumbs up for me for Minas by St. Ives Brewery.
Excellent. Well, you were at the seaside there in St. Ives. Well, I'm at the seaside too, because I've got a beer from Lost Pier.
Now, this is interesting because we've finally, after 3 years and 50 episodes, we finally worked out a good way to ship beer to each other. And you sent me some Lost Pier, just the same as I sent you some St. Ives. Now, I've had 2 Lost Pier beers, and I've been impressed by both. So I'm interested to see what you're going to think. Right,
well, the beer I've got is called Fruit Machine. I bet you've had that.
I've had Fruit Machine. I'm very intrigued to see what you make of it.
Yeah, so this is their New England IPA, and I sort of presumed that you'd have had this. Now,
it's the first one I had.
Yeah, I thought it would be. Now, first of all, love the artwork on the cans. really striking. It's a sort of a vibrant pinky orange with all sorts of pictures of fruits on there and a machine with fruit coming out of it in this case, hence fruit machine. This is 5.5%, and I'm going to pour it out into my Lost Pier glass.
Yes. I was incredibly surprised that in my box I also had 2 glasses.
Yeah.
I thought given how I was surprised you were willing to part. There.
I did think twice about passing the glasses on, I have to say, yeah. Right, this is a beautiful colour. Beautiful colour. In the glass, deep yellow colour, nice head on there, lots of bubbles going on. Oh, it smells very fruity.
Now, if I remember rightly, it should smell and taste of one specific fruit in general, because I think there's a puree, but I can't remember. I think there is a puree, but I can't think what they've added.
Start testing. Oh, yes, I see what it is now, yes. I've just had a quick look at the can. Yes, that does make sense. Isn't it weird that you'll have a beer and you'll think, oh, that's fruity, but until you actually are told what the fruit is.
Yeah, you think, oh, yeah, that tastes of fruit. What fruit is that? And then someone says, oh, it's that. Oh, yeah, it's that.
I mean, if you said to me that was peach, I would say, oh, yeah, it's peach, or mango. But anyway, in this case, it's apricot.
Yes.
And the colour actually is very apricot-like as well, isn't it?
Mm.
This is supremely soft. Really lovely and soft. Nice bit of fruit that goes all the way through, ends on a bit of a bitter note, but not a really bitter note. It's not off-putting in any way. It makes you want to go back for some more.
Yeah, it's fruity sweet, but not sickly sweet as well, isn't it? There's apricot in there, which in fairness is a hard flavour to pull through. I find apricot in beer doesn't often stand up because I think it's a bit subtle. But that one's not OTT, but it's not subtle, is it? It's nicely balanced.
Yeah, I've just gone back in another bit, and you can, it already starts to come through. Now I know what it is. The hops. On the hot side, we have Mosaic, Idaho 7, and one for you, Dave, Sriracha Ace.
I don't know. I thought Sriracha Ace had been done away with, so I'm always a bit now when I see a beer that's got it in there. I wonder where the heck they've got it.
Yeah, where's
from.
the hop?
It might be out of date.
Well, Lost Pier have got hold of some anyway, and it's also got Citra in there on the cold side. Yeah, it's tasting good. Let's speak to Dan. Let's listen to Dan from Lost Pier. He can tell us all about the brewery, and we'll come back in a few minutes' time.
Hey guys, Dan here from Lost Pier Brewing. You might hear the sea in the background. I'm actually down Brighton Beach at the moment, enjoying the last day of summer, perhaps. But thanks for having me on, Dave. We're a nomadic brewer based in Brighton. We've brewed at quite a few places in Sussex now. First started out brewing with Abyss under Andy's pub in Lewis in the Pelham Arms, which was really fun on the little 100 litre kit. And as a guy that's about 6'2", brewing in under the cellar was quite fun. Put a new term on the back-breaking work. That was great fun down there. And then we've been brewing other places actually, but mostly we're based in Missing Link now. I know you had those guys on recently. They've invested a lot of time and money into the equipment up there, and we're making some really good beers. And so you've tried the Missing Link stuff as well. Really hop forwards, sort of tropical, juicy styles. They have a centrifuge there, which is for brewing heavily hopped dry hop beers is a godsend really, because we don't have to be too careful in our hopping rates. We can just sort of go for it and experiment a little bit, and have the centrifuge there to back us up and drop out any hop particles and stuff, so we never have any of that hop burn in our beers. Really enjoyable, smooth tasting beers there. So we enjoyed being there. We've actually, hopefully, I say touch wood, we're getting a site in Brighton, which is actually based on the same estate as where Brighton Beer are, and Loudshirt Brewery as well, who are under new ownership. So we're going to try and create a nice little vibe there. A little 1,000 litre kit, and we're going to start doing some cask as well. I think the world needs more modern hazy cask beer, so we're going to release a whole new range of products and carry on brewing at Missing Link as well. Take use of the canning machine there and the centrifuge, and then we're going to basically bump up our capacity by brewing cask and some core range keg at the new Brighton site. So all fingers crossed. We haven't got the keys yet. I've probably just cursed myself, but it looks like it's going through. So really excited for that, and a lot of hard work ahead of us, but it's really going to help us get on the map more really, and have our own space, which is always going to be really good fun. My background is I basically started a wine degree course at Plumpton College. So we've done a 3-year BSc there and learned how to make wine, learned how to grow grapes, harvest, process, package, microbiology, normal biology. It was a really, really good time. And from that is how I got into brewing, weirdly. I was working at a wine shop, and the owners were able to put a bit of money behind me and sort of start brewing, really. I found it more fun, and there was less sort of glass ceilings, I guess. You could just walk straight into it and sort of have some fun, really. Also like the idea of brewing whatever I want, when I want, really. We've initially travelled the world, which is one of the romantic things being a winemaker. If you're going to stay in the UK, we make excellent fizz here, and some excellent whites, but you only really get to use a few varieties and make a few styles. But, you know, with beer, you're not limited to hops or grain or anything like that. So I found that a bit more exciting, being an impatient person. So it was a natural step, and I could take a lot from what I learned on the wine course, mainly tasting and detecting faults and managing yeast. Yeah, it's coming really useful. And one of the things that come off the back of that was actually blending the two. So I think the term is ono beers. So part of that is viticulture and enology. So these beers, enology, so it's sort of a ono beer is what I've heard it called, but we're basically blending the two together. So we've actually done Sauvignon Blanc Goza beer, we've done a Malbec Stout, and I've got plenty more up our sleeves that I really want to do, and some of that involves barrel aging and blending, and I think hopefully we've got a collab coming out with someone else soon, well, towards the end of the year anyway, which is going to be another style. Yeah, we want to work with all sorts of things, so Riesling and all sorts of varieties that go hand in hand with a beer style, so we're taking the best of both. That's how sort of the Malbec Stout come out of it, because, you know, good Malbec, you get that nice sort of toasty, almost toasty oak flavour and chocolate and coffee flavours you can get with some Malbecs, and then obviously that sort of berry influence, which I think really worked really well. Come out kind of like Rodenbach, or sort of like a Flemish red kind of style. It was beautiful. It was really good, and we'd done that with Vibrant Forest, actually. It was a collab with those guys. So we want to get more into that. And what else is going on at Lost Pier? Well, we've basically got a huge cold store in Burgess Hill, and we've just modified that. Not the actual cold store, but the warehouse. We've put a new bar in there. Got our own little tap room now. Yeah, seats up to sort of 100 people. Going really well, really well. We've been open for about 3 months now, and it's a lovely sort of community we've got there now. Loads of regulars. We invite, obviously, a food truck along every Friday and Saturday. Try not to sort of keep the same ones too often, but we've got everything, you know, pizza, fried chicken, burgers, all the things that, you know, make you happy and fat. So we've been through a lot of those guys now, and it's really interesting working with everybody and meeting people. Here we've got 8 taps there. It's really good. Really good. We do a quiz night as well on Thursdays, which is really great fun, and we're hoping to build on it for next year as well. So yeah, really looking forward to the future and opening the new site in Brighton and having a tap room there as well. So we'll have 2 separate sites, lots of running around, but it's going to be great. Yeah. So our latest beer, which you guys have got, is a beer called Thiol Dust, which again sort of really excited me in terms of my sort of wine making background and degree. Is basically this stuff I've been waiting for ages. Phantasm is a byproduct of the winemaking process, so it's crushed and dried and powderized Sauvignon Blanc skins, and Sauvignon has a particular high thiol precursor in the skins, and winemakers have been using certain yeasts and enzymes for a long time now to naturally grab and release those the thiols from the skin. So Sauvignon Blanc has such a distinct, powerful aroma, and yeah, these guys, Joss, the guy that makes the stuff, he's a clever guy, and we used it basically in this new thiolized beer. We took a yeast from WHC called Hop Unlock, which which is it's a non-GMO yeast, and it naturally releases thiol. So I think when you're trying it, you'll be able to pick out there's something different about the beer. It's not just any old NEPA. There's underlying sort of sherbet, gooseberry sort of flavour on the backbone, and then on the top notes you're getting all the tropical NEPA vibes from the Idaho 7, the Citra Cryo, Nelson, and Rewalker as well. So it all comes together to make quite a special beer. We're really happy with it. It's pretty powerful, and it works on a few levels as well. So yeah, really happy with that beer, and it's something that we want to keep trying to experiment with. We actually used Phantasm in the Whirlpool, and we didn't actually dry hop with it. But it was so interesting. I opened the bag up, and you already got flavours, notes of basically wine and Sauvignon Blancs and gooseberries was coming out the bag. Even though those flavours probably didn't make it into the beer, it's the thiol precursors that we released in the Whirlpool that worked with the yeast to really give that extra 1% to the beer. It's all these little bits these days with trying to get in flavour where you can. We use Cascade in the mash hop as well. Mash hopping's been shown to increase the thiol precursors because malt contains a lot of bound thiols as well. We've used mash hop on our last thiolized beer as well, which was Thiol Thrasher. That also came out really good. It's a little bit lighter than the Thiol Dust. Thiol Dust is quite a big, hard-hitting, like juicy monster, really. Yeah, with that sort of delicate sherbet note as well. So yeah, really, really happy with the beer, and really excited to see where else we can take the Phantasm and look at some new processes and use it in a different way, potentially make one of the Ono beers with it and get some wine in there and have some fun, really. Yeah, so anything else that comes up, I'm always excited to use new product. Yeah, everyone is, there's always new hops to use, there's new hop products, new yeast, it's non-stop, and it's great for us brewers because there's so many tricks up our sleeves now. It's a really exciting time, and I think it's just going to continue. We're going to keep brewing thiolized beers. I think there is a future for them. They don't always have to be labelled as thiolized, but the sort of processes we use always help in bringing all the flavours out. So yeah, I'll definitely be using the Hop and Lock again from WHC, and we got some Phantasm left, so we're going to hopefully do a collab with someone soon who also loves the stuff, so we'll keep you posted on that. The couple of beers we sent up for you guys, so obviously we sent the Thiol Dust. It's a 6.4% NEPA, thiolized NEPA. We also sent you two of our core range beers. So there's Fruit Machine, which is probably, there's one or two beers that people remember our name by, and it's either the Beach Session, which are 4%, classic, refreshing, still relatively fruity, but nice thirst quenching bitterness on there. So really good for a hot summer's day. It's either Beach Session or it's Fruit Machine. People think Lost Pier, they think Fruit Machine, and it really has got a big following. People love the stuff. It's a full-flavoured NEPA, 5.5%, Citra in the dry hop. In the Whirlpool, we use Idaho 7 and Sriracha Ace and Mosaic. There's a lot of haters for Sriracha Ace, but using the right way is one of the most amazing hops. There's so much lemon and coconut there, and that flavour works so well when you take oats to a beer and you have that sort of body in that style. And we use apricot as well, so you've got this sort of fruit salad, tutti fruity, but then the nice sort of resinous deep hop flavour you get from the Citra dry hops as well. So it's a real winner, that one. We also sent our beer Juicy Boy as well, which was the prequel to Foggy Boy, which is our first ever tipper. Really good labels. Our designer Mr. Phil done a really good job on them. But Juicy Boy is our new core range beer. We used to have a APA in our core range, but just sort of changing tastes. The APA we decided to lose. It's something we might pick up in our cask range coming out. But Juicy Boy is just a 4.8%. It really sort of bats well above its ABV. It tastes like a 5.5, 6%. Loads of oats in there. We use naked oats. nice sort of sweet, creamy, almost custardy, that sort of soft flavour. We use London Ale 3 in there, and we also use, in the dry hop, is Cry Up Hop, which is a hop blend from Yakima Chief. And every beer I had it in last year, I think when it was first released, was just outstanding. And I was like, wow, this product is it's so good. It has a definite sort of pina colada sort of flavour. There must be some Sabro in there, but they use a lot of hops that give survivable hop compounds and flavours in the beer. You know, when you try some beers sometimes throughout its life, you know, from straight out the tank to maybe 3 or 4 months in, some hops just fade away so quick. So they've basically gone through HPLC analysis. So they've broken down all the components in hops and found out what are the compounds sticking around, and then selected hops for the blend from that. There's definitely some Sabro in there. They don't say what actual hops are in there, but overall a lovely sort of pina colada, tropical juice bowl sort of flavours, and it was a no-brainer for me to use that in Juicy Boy as well. So that's been out for about 6 or 8 months now as a core range beers, and it's just starting to get some traction, but we're hoping to grow that quite a bit, and it's stunning. Real nice, really happy with that. So we're hoping to see Juicy Boy and Fruit Machine around some more UK pubs, and that's the plan. Send it far and wide, and people need to try the Fruit Machine and Juicy Boy because they're real big hitters. Everything is available on the web shop. I'm sure we can give the listeners a little code to use on the web shop should you all want to try these beers. Thanks again for having us on. Cheers, Dave.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Dan. That was fantastic. What a piece of audio that was, with the waves of Brighton Beach lapping in the background and wonderful descriptions of the beers. I was meant to be trying the Phantasm beer, but forgot all about that one. And as you heard me open the beer before, it was the Fruit Machine one that I opened. But I'm glad I did now, actually. Now Dan has described that as one of his core range beers and a big hitting beer, because that is really what it is. And it's an excellent beer. Great description too. I've met Dan once, and it was at Missing Link when I was down there recording our Missing Link bonus episode. And Dan actually brews at Missing Link using their equipment. And knowing how good Missing Link's beers are, I had high hopes for this. And I think those hopes are justified. It's very good beer.
Yeah, as I say, I've had that one, and I had another one last night, which I've forgotten the name of, and I'm impressed by both. I know when you went and did the Missing Link bonus, you were very impressed with the kit.
Yeah, exactly. This kit's good. And when I was there, Dan was actually brewing on the kit, so he's doing it all himself, just using the equipment that's Missing Links. And I think quite a few of the breweries in that area actually do that. One of the reasons they got their name is they provide the link for people who want to brew. And, Dan's got it down to a T. That's really good. Really interesting to see the progress as well that Lost Pier have made from when they first started with a 100-litre kit brewing with Abyss to stepping up and now brewing with Missing Link. And as Dan was saying, they're going to have their own 1,000-litre kit to brew on as well soon. Their cask stuff, which would be really interesting to try. I'm going to have to get down to Brighton, I can see. Because when you think Brighton, you think Beak and Bard.
Yes. I always get Beak a little bit confused with Flock, who are in Margate.
Yeah, also by the seaside.
Also, exactly, that's why I get them confused. And I must say, it's just really random aside, but you mentioned them. I've started now, when I see Beak beers, like if I'm doing an order or anything, they're starting to go into the basket more often than not now. I've had a couple of really, really good ones from them recently. They seem to have really upped their game.
Well, this is what happens. Breweries do get better, and they will do, because they'll start and they'll get used to their kit. Their confidence will grow. They'll get better at what they're doing. Maybe they'll upgrade their kit, finesse the recipes a little bit, and the beers will get better. And that's what happens, which is why, and we've said this so many times, if you have a beer from a brewery and you think, oh, this is okay, you shouldn't just think all of their future beers will only be okay, because they're going to get better. You should try them again. Yeah,
which lends itself to what we were talking about previous episode, where I said I'm trying to place in a little order from one brewery, but exploring their range and seeing what they do well and maybe what's not quite to my taste and things like that. But I think we can say that both of our beers are definitely good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I love this feature. I say it so many times, but I love this feature because we get to find these little breweries that nobody else is talking about. And they're like the unsung heroes of the scene, really, because they're producing really good beers. So it'd stand up there alongside any of the much bigger breweries. And I absolutely cannot wait to try the Phantasm beer from Lost Pier and the others, to be honest. The minute we stop this, I'm going to be hot-footing it down to the fridge and getting those out. So thanks so much, Dan, and also Callum from St Ives Brewery for joining us on this feature. Really enjoyed those beers. Excellent.
Get in touch with us on Twitter and Instagram at Daftaboutcraft1.
So you're listening to episode 50 of Daft About Craft, and it's time to have a little chat with somebody, and we've got Rhys from Caps Off in Bishop's Auckland in County Durham. Welcome to the podcast, Rhys.
Hi, Dave. Nice to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you. Now, we should explain to people how I met you. It was in Birmingham at the Craft Brew Festival a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And I think we should tell listeners, before we go into anything, about your journey to get there.
So we did have a little bit of a nightmare. It was a busy weekend for Caps Off in general. We were down to Birmingham for the festival, and we also had events going on back home. So we loaded the van with everything in the morning and set off, and it was only about half an hour down the A19. We started having problems with the van, and it just became a little bit of a nightmare. We finally got back up and running, and it's quite a long drive. I can't remember how long it should have taken us, but it did take us a lot longer than we thought. Got to the festival, started setting up the bar. The sales guy I was with, he had to go and check in the hotel, and people started coming at the festival, and I was panicking. We haven't even got the linders on yet, the beer set up. Luckily, it was only about 10 minutes after people started coming in, we got fully set up, but it was a journey and a half, I tell you that.
Well, it's a long way anyway, isn't it? Regardless of anything going wrong, it's a long old way, and then for that to happen.
Yeah, so some things you can't plan for, unfortunately.
But you got round it, and was it a good festival for you in the end?
It was, yeah, it was cracking. It's good to get out to them kind of places and just get talking to people as well. Like meeting yourself there, talking to some of the breweries who, we are so far up north that there's sometimes we just won't kind of get to mix with some breweries further south. So it's definitely worth it for that. And just the festival itself, the guys there done a cracking job with it. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they did. It was great, wasn't it? You must spend a lot of time then in a small sort of circle of breweries in your neck of the woods. Well, not small, actually. There's quite a lot of you, but you must see the same faces over and over again.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Which, it's nice to have a nice group around us. And, not too far out of Newcastle either, and there's quite a bit going on in Newcastle as well. So, no, yeah, there's definitely a lot up here, but it's very different, like your Manchester scene, your Birmingham scene.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Every city's got its own scene, which is completely different to the next city. It's fascinating how it works.
It is, yeah.
Anyway, so your backgrounds, you haven't been at Caps Off for very long, have you?
So I started with Caps Off in May this year, so it's still pretty new. I've been in the brewing industry for 5 or 6 years now, though. So I've seen a few breweries. I've been around a little bit.
I'm always intrigued to find out how people got started in brewing, because I remember years ago when I first got interested in beer, you get a home brew kit and you do a bit of experiments, and then you find out it's not very good, and most people just stop. Except some people take it a bit further. Did you go from home brewing? Is that how it worked for you?
So funnily enough, I never actually homebrewed.
Oh, okay.
Before I got into brewing, I was studying politics and international development at Chester University.
All right, yeah. Obviously that leads into beer, doesn't it? Of course, yeah.
Sounds exciting already. I soon realised kind of university wasn't for me. I was working behind the bar at the time at Brewhouse and Kitchen, a brew pub chain. I think they've got about 24 pubs now.
Yeah, they've got a few in this neck of the woods as well, yeah.
Yeah, and I just got really interested. I became like a beer specialist there, started running the beer masterclasses, just got really interested in beer. And then towards the end of my first year at university, when I was kind of contemplating on what to do, they were taking on for brewing apprentices. So I thought I'll try that because I really like beer. I'd done a couple of brews with the brewer there at the time and thought I quite enjoyed it. So I turned my hand to that and I've not looked back.
You almost fell into it then.
Yeah, there was, part luck involved, kind of right place, right time, really. And it's worked out well.
And you soon found yourself at Pomona Island in Manchester.
I did, yeah. So I was at Pomona for about a year and a half, nearly 2 years. So yeah, that was great. That was cracking beer, cracking team of people there.
Were you there in COVID times then?
No, so I joined after the COVID times.
Ah, okay.
They kind of hit the ground running after COVID a bit more, and they were expanding the brewery team shortly after. I think it was about maybe 6 months to a year after.
Right.
So again, that was a great job and got into that, and yeah, brilliant.
I ask about COVID because if I always think of what breweries did during those couple of years, and Pomona Island must have been the most prolific beer producer on the craft scene during those couple of years, because they were banging beers out left, right and centre every week. There was another new batch of releases. They were really on their game, weren't they?
Yeah, they were turning out still turning out some brilliant beer. I was actually drinking a lot of their beer in the lockdown.
Yeah.
And I was working in Liverpool at the time. They put the job application up, and it was a mate of mine said, "Oh, you should have a crack at that. You know, you were saying you wanted to move to Manchester and all that." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I've had some of their beers and they're great." So I didn't know if I'd get it, so I applied for that on a whim as well, and then that worked out really well.
Well, it's a bit of a charmed life when it comes to brewing. So you were brewing beers right across the spectrum then at Pomona, you know, from your sours, pales, stouts, they did everything there. What did you particularly enjoy?
I mean, I enjoyed having the range there. You know, you go to some breweries and you might brew one style of beer very well, but to work for a brewery who brews all styles of beer very well, I think it was just the range that varied that kind of kept it really, really interesting for me. Before I started there, I wasn't a huge West Coast fan, and now West Coast's one of my favourite styles of beer.
Isn't it weird how that can change so quickly? If you have a good example of a beer, it can change your perception entirely.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's just about getting them little things right from style to style. It's definitely harder than it sounds, so it's a very good thing to crack. So I think, you know, it's the consistency across the board. You have, you know, some breweries where it doesn't matter whether you're buying pale ale, IPA or stout or sour, you know that they're all going to be really good.
You just know, don't you, when you see certain breweries, you think, yeah, they've got that nailed, they've got that nailed, they've got that nailed. So what have you got nailed then, now you're at Caps Off? What is your speciality, or are you just good at brewing everything?
Well, I guess I'll let the customers decide that, but I like to think I'm doing an all right job so far. And again, you know, we're still kind of getting going really at Caps Off. So when I started, we were starting to brew a lot more than they were previously, and they had, you know, the core range in place. You know, we've got a 4.2% pale ale here, nice hazy hoppy pale ale. So I think with me coming in, it's trying to get a bit more styles out across the board. So
yeah,
we've done a summer fruit sour, which has went down really well.
That's the one you had at Birmingham, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
That was good. That was really good.
We have a West Coast pale in tank at the moment, so that'll be released in the next couple of weeks. We are brewing a dipper tomorrow.
Would that be Caps Off first dipper then, or have they been done in the past?
So they have done some previously in the past, but it was kind of more when they were selling more local, more at events and stuff.
Yeah.
So it probably will be the first Caps Off dipper to kind of hit the wholesale market and make its way to, you know, hopefully your places like Manchester, London, Birmingham.
Oh, that's exciting then, isn't it? Really.
Places like that, yeah. Very excited for that.
So we should say, how long has the brewery actually been going then? When did they start?
So I think the brewery started, it was 2017, 2018, or not even necessarily the brewery. They actually started as a bottle shop.
Yeah.
Hence the name Caps Off. It was for the bottle caps.
Yeah, of course.
So they started as like a bottle shop bar, and then the owner bought a brew kit. They were on a 2.5 barrel kit before. It was just after COVID, they moved up to 10 barrel. So quite a big jump. Moved into a new unit, which has more capacity, more fermentation space.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of went from there. So they were kind of, you know, brewing here and there to get the beer for the events. You know, in the summer, we do 2 to 3 events a weekend, so it can be pretty busy. And we have the on-site tap room as well. Yeah, they were doing that for a couple of years, and then that brings us to now, where they've brought me into kind of, we're brewing more often, we're brewing a bit more varied.
So do you have quite a free rein when it comes to what you do, or is there some sort of Mr. Big above you saying, no, we don't want that, we want this? How does it work?
So we tend to just, you know, we have, it's a small team, quite a close-knit team. So we tend to just have team meetings weekly or as and when they're kind of needed. And we'll just throw ideas off each other. As a brewer, I know what I want to brew for me to drink. But, you know, the sales guys who are going out to all of the bars, you know, they're useful because they see what other breweries are putting out into the world as well. If the sales, you know, team go to 5 pubs and there's a 6% IPA on from 5 different breweries, and we don't have a 6% IPA, we kind of know what we need to be brewing. So no, yeah, everything kind of comes from a team effort, really.
So your enthusiasm, if your enthusiasm for what you do was like on a graph, would it be going sort of up and up and up from when you started brewing? Are you still just as enthusiastic? Are you more enthusiastic? Do you love it more than ever?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it does just continue going up. I think when you first start, you get the initial buzz of actually brewing the beer, and you go from the brew day to the finished product, which can take, anywhere between 2.5, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks and onwards with, some lagers. But I think as you kind of get more into it, you become more enthusiastic about the industry itself rather than the job I do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being a brewer. Most Mondays to Fridays, I'm in my own little corner on my own, and I'm just cracking away. But when you get to do the events like Birmingham, like the festival that we've done Manchester as well, you just get a different kind of buzz from just talking to people who just love it as much as you do.
Yeah, at that festival I was helping out Copper Beach on their stand, and when you have those interactions with the public and they're standing in front of you and they're drinking the beer that in your case you made and you're selling it to them and you see them enjoying it, that must be fantastic.
Yeah, and you get a few people who come up to you as well and just say, even if they just say, this is really great, there is a part of you inside that just thinks like,
I did that.
Yeah. And, like I say, it can be a long few weeks brewing a beer. It's not just what you do on the day, it's everything you do in between. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just nice that people kind of realise that when they drink it, that, someone's made it and they've done a good job.
I think that's one of the good things about craft beer is that a lot of people think about what they're drinking. If your normal lager drinker down the pub on a Friday night, they're just drinking a pint of lager. But when people drink the sort of beers that you're making and the sort of beers that we drink, we know what's gone into it. I like to think we have a real appreciation for what you do.
I think there's definitely more of a sense of appreciation. Also in just terms in craft beer of how people drink. People are drinking a beer more now to enjoy it, to appreciate maybe that style of beer or something they've not tried before, rather than just drinking your lagers to get on your way.
I think that's one of the big differences between, if you want, normal drinkers and what we do. I always think I'm not drinking this to get drunk. I'm just drinking it because they're lovely, nice beers. It's almost like an unwanted byproduct if you get too hammered on this stuff, because you have to stop drinking it then, and I want to drink more of it. So a subject that's come up quite a bit recently, I've seen quite a few articles about this, is that the whole world of craft beer is gone a bit stagnant. I don't know whether you've seen any of these articles anywhere. They've popped up in various places. I mean, you're obviously still excited about what you do, but what do you think the future holds for craft beer? Is there only so many hazy pales we can all drink and produce? Where does it go? What do we do next? Because when craft beer first came about, there was always a next big thing. Has everything been done?
So in the terms of the next big thing or anything to do with that kind of arguments in craft, it's a tough one to predict because with how we brew and the ingredients we have, there is kind of only so much you can do that's going to work. Like quite recently, or in the last year or so, the next big thing to come out was the cold IPAs, which had kind of taken off, but not as much as your double IPAs or your triple IPAs or anything like that. Just in terms of the craft beer industry as it is, or as what's going to happen, I don't think there is only so many hazy pales you can brew or drink, because what's the alternative then? It's very difficult to go from these nice hazy pales back to just drinking your normal beers. Yeah. So I think that's always going to be. I think people have got the taste for it, and that's always going to be the case. Obviously, the industry, like many industries, are feeling a bit of a hit with costs of everything going up.
Well, that was another thing I was going to ask you about as well. How has that impacted what you do?
So, yeah, you see the price increases across the board, whether it's your raw materials or electricity, anything like that. And, it's a tough one to predict because we don't want to pass that cost on, but we don't want to, you want to make it sustainable as well. So it's just finding that middle ground. But also, back to what I was saying about the alternative of, well, people aren't going to go back to just exclusively normal beer after having the taste for the craft beer that's been around for how long. So I think as well, people kind of don't mind spending that extra pound or here or there when they know that they're getting what in their mind is a superior product. They're drinking arguably better beer or a more tasty beer. So I think that'll all just kind of just carry on as it is, really.
I think you're right. I think still loads of potential in the UK. And as for prices, when you go out and you're drinking craft beer, you expect to pay what the brewery want. You know, whatever they ask, you'll pay it, won't you? Because you want to drink their beer.
Yeah, exactly. You know, people now kind of know what they want. Craft beer, it's been around for long enough now, I think, that people understand that if they want a pint of it, it is going to be slightly more expensive, but it is going to be arguably a better product, and people enjoy it. That's the main thing. Like you say, you know, we got a lot of good feedback from the festival in Birmingham, and, you know, people were there and they really enjoyed it and had a good time. So
that's what you want, isn't it? If people are enjoying your beer, they're paying for it, they're enjoying it, feedback's good, you're happy.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all we can ask for.
We're talking about rising costs and stuff. The recent duty changes, how's that affected Caps Off? Because I've seen a lot of negative stuff about this, but I've also heard some positive stories as well, and that some breweries are actually somewhat better off under the new rules.
The whole duty changes that's come about has kind of taken so long to actually being put in place, and it's changed numerous times before they've actually put it in place as well.
Yeah.
So there was kind of a lot of confusion about it, and now we kind of understand it better. I can understand how it will affect some breweries in a negative way. However, for Caps Off, so the biggest change that will affect a lot of breweries is the over 8.5% threshold.
Yeah.
And like I say, you know, for us at the moment, we're still kind of finding where we're going next and what I'm going to be doing next. We do have a couple of Imperial Stout and Barley Wine brews coming up, so that'll affect us with the duty, and we'll have to take the hit on that. But when the majority of what you're brewing is between the kind of 4 and 8% range, we're kind of seeing it's not too dissimilar to what the duty we were paying before, really. Yeah. So we'll take the bigger hit on anything over 8.5%, but also maybe just put out a table beer at 3.4%, and that also is in favour of the duty changes. You'll see table beers coming up quite a bit.
Yeah. I love a table beer. I think they're great. If you're going out on a session, a table beer's perfect. But I was going to ask you actually about your recent table beer, the New Zealand one. What's it called? So what's it called?
You know what? I wish I could say it. I wish I could say the name.
For those who don't know, it's a very, very, very long name.
So we decided we wanted to do a beer with New Zealand hops and have it as a kind of table beer, which, funnily enough, did tie in with the duty changes, but that wasn't pre-planned. We did just want a lower ABV pale out there. So again, for the beer names, you know, it's just kind of in the group chat or as we're talking in a meeting, right, we need a name for this, need a name for that. So we're just chatting. I was like, well, if it's, you know, all New Zealand, you start looking at like facts about New Zealand or something and see what name you can tie in with that. And yeah, New Zealand have a town or village with the longest name in the world for a geographical place.
Got you.
So that's where that came from.
Do you know anybody who can actually say it?
There's some people on YouTube, but...
Right, well, I've been drinking, I think we've opened the same beer at the same time. This is the Hot White Tuk Tuk Pale Ale. Is that the one you've got?
That's what I've got at the moment, yeah.
Well, I've gone through pretty much a whole can out of the glass you very kindly sent me, which is very nice. I noticed when I was looking at the can, it says a little bit on the back about Barry the bear. I think we should know about Barry the bear and where he comes from.
So yeah, Barry the bear just started off the Caps Off as a little mascot, and then with our graphic designer, it just kind of got put into the kind of design. Barry the bear will feature on all of the pump clips and the can designs. And he's very much there. He's on the T-shirt, so you can see.
I've seen it. Yeah, that does look pretty good. I think mascots in craft beer are a really good idea. At Birmingham, Mill Hill were there, and they've got a mascot called. Is it Colin or Clive? I always get this wrong. Oh no, Harry at Mill Hill knows I always get this wrong. It's Colin or Clive, and he appears and everything. And I think it's great to have that because people really engage with it, don't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you know, it's another thing with craft as well. It just makes you a little bit different for like your artworks and stuff like that. Because you know, you look at all the craft breweries, and you know they all have their different stamps and different way that they put their marketings across, which is all great.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, your cans, which all do have the bear on, they're clever because they all fit into a design scheme, but they're all different. They'd look nice all lined up next to each other on a wall.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Brent, our graphic designer, he does all of the designs, and they're all cracking, really.
Here's a question for you. Recently, I was in a pub round here, a couple of months ago, and, actually, I only went to this pub because they'd got a certain beer on, and it was one of your beers on cask. I thought, whoa, caps off. From all the way up there in the local pub round here on cask. Do you do a lot of cask?
We do, yes. We try and split everything evenly between cask and keg.
Is this because cask is still more popular in your sort of area?
I'm not sure about more popular. It's definitely at least equally popular.
Right. As a brewer, how do you feel about making your beer to go into cask? Does it bother you, or you don't care what it goes into?
Because as a consumer, I much prefer cask.
Ah, right, okay.
So as a brewer, I've not really thought about it because it's just something, it's just kind of become second nature. And, there are some slight process changes between cask and keg, but it still stays fairly similar.
Yeah.
But as a consumer, if I go out to the pub, I look at the cask first. And then if there's nothing I want on cask, I'll look at the kegs, but that's never usually the case.
I'll tell you what, it's interesting how many brewers you speak to, and a lot of them say, oh yeah, cask is my first love, that's what I like first and foremost. Fascinates me. I was at an event recently and some guys from Camera came in and they refused to buy any beers because there was none on cask. They were only interested in cask. And I was saying to them, but these beers are really good. Why don't you try them? And they was like, no, they're on keg. We only drink cask.
I would never exclusively rule out a serving style.
And it's ridiculous when you think about it, isn't it?
As much as, I'm saying I do prefer cask, say I go into a pub and I've had the cask, I'm happy to move on to keg, or if there's something I've really been wanting to try on keg, usually like a Pomona or a Vault City kind of beer, I would happily go for the keg beer as well. I'm not fussy when it comes to beer.
Is there a specific beer of yours that you think tastes superior on cask to keg?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a bit of a cliched answer, but our best bitter.
Right. Well, yeah, I get that completely, of course.
I guess it's just a style that favours cask anyway.
Yeah.
If I was to not go down the bitter route, we'd done a session IPA, 4%, nice and actually clear. To me, I'd rather have that on cask than keg, where I think I might be with the minority on that one, because it is quite light and refreshing on keg as well.
Interesting. I love getting these different takes on what people like and don't like. Right, so I polished off this beer. Should we open our second one? Are you ready to open another one?
I am, yeah.
And then you can tell us about this. So when it comes to the brewing, is it just you? Are you doing everything, or have you got an assistant? Or
so for the brewing, it is mostly just me. It is pretty manageable. I do have some busy days, but the owner, Ali, he's always around to muck in when I need him. So
so the owner's quite hands-on as well. That's good then.
He is, yeah. He kind of does a bit of everything. He helps out in the brewery when I need him. He helps out with the sales when they need him. If customers want a permanent line of our beer, he goes to visit the pubs to, with the equipment and whatnot. So yeah, so he's pretty hands-on, which is good.
So this beer we've just opened then, you want to tell the listeners about what this is?
Yeah, so we got 5% Snapped Winch IPA. So this is Mosaic, Citra, and a little bit of Cryo Talus in there. Not Mosaic, sorry, Cascade.
Talus, you can smell, can't you?
Yeah, I think it's a great hop.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it? That's a hop that all of a sudden has started to get more popular, and you see it more and more now. It's interesting, actually, how hops go through these phases of being really popular, but everybody uses them, and then they just stop being popular and nobody uses them anymore.
I think with certain hops, they're almost like the phases, the fads of, some certain styles similar to that. You obviously have, your Mosaic, your Citra, your Simcoe.
Yeah.
The kind of 3 OG craft beer hops that people are never going to get bored of. People are always going to use them. But then you have your hops like Sabro, which kind of Sabro was in everything for about 6 to 12 months. It's in few and far between now.
What I noticed, though, is when people now do use it, they're using it a lot more restrained than they were using it. They were sort of heaping it into everything, and everything was pineapple-y and coconutty, and there was a lot of heavy-handed use of Sabro, I thought, when it was first out.
It's almost used now to just kind of complement other things rather than be the star of the show.
So are you always on the lookout for different hops and different hop combinations? I mean, there are only so many combinations, going back to what we were saying before, that you can use.
Yeah, absolutely. When we get like emails from the suppliers we use and stuff, they'll always be saying about what different hops or experimental hops are there. Like you say, the combinations, there are ways to use the same hops multiple times in different ways that do still make it a bit different. So there is a lot you can do in that sense. And as thought out as it sometimes is, it's also sometimes just throw that in, because also there's not many hops that are going to be bad really, or they're just maybe it's not to some people's taste. But, you know, with a hop forward beer, you know it's going to be pretty tasty.
I guess sometimes it's a case of what you've got, what you can get your hands on as well.
Yeah, that's another thing. You know, a lot of breweries are contracting hops and everything now as well. So yeah, there are only so many of each variety for each harvest each year. So that does make the buying them kind of sporadic in some senses.
Do you ever feel like you're on a bit of a merry-go-round where it's like, here we go again, you know, Simcoe, Citra, Mosaic, here we go again. What can we do new with these hops now? Is it repetitive sometimes when you're just dealing with those same things? Or are you always looking to inject something a bit different into whatever beer it is you're making?
So yeah, so something I enjoy with the job of being a brewer is, you know, even if it's the same beer, you keep you keep the hops the same, or so the tuk-tuk, we keep the hops the same. We keep the main part of the recipe the same, but that doesn't mean I'm not changing other things slightly to try and just make it a little bit better each time.
You're always tinkering with stuff, aren't you?
So yeah, it's like, you know, the hops are what people care about, obviously, and they are this, you know, the main part of these hop forward beers. But, you know, there are just different things you can do with, say, the water, or even just things like, you know, your mash temperatures, a little bit higher gravity for a bit more sweetness, and that kind of changes the final product as well. So there are still a lot of ways to play around with a beer without necessarily changing the hops. Or
will you be like, sorry, it's probably a stupid question, but, you know, would you be lying in bed at night one night and you suddenly think, oh, I can do this to that beer and that'll make a difference, I've got to try that? Are you always thinking about it?
Maybe it's like 60 to 70% of the time.
Yeah.
I do switch off sometimes. The funny thing with being a brewer is that your 9 till 5 is all about beer and brewing beer. But then what do you do when you get home after a long day at work to relax? You crack open a beer as well.
Crack open a beer, go to the pub, yeah, whatever. It's all beer, isn't it?
So beer does end up taking over your brain a lot. So there are definitely some times where I kind of sit and think, and I kind of think, why didn't I think of that before? And there are some times where I'm quite happy to switch off and maybe have a glass of wine instead.
Oh, it's nice you can do that. That is nice. You can put that separation there and just, that's enough for now. That's enough beer for now.
Absolutely, yeah.
So on a brew day, tell us about your day. When do you get up? What time do you stop brewing? And when does it all end? How long is the whole process?
On a general day, I'll get into work for about 9 o'clock. Make a coffee. That's the priority. I do tend to like to prepare the brew, like the bags of malt and the salts and everything the previous day. So I know everything's ready, so get in, grab me coffee. And I'll be mashing in for about 10 past 9. So the mashing in's the start of the brew day. Then want to be transferring it to the kettle and boiling by about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Boil takes an hour. And then depending on the beer or the style of beer, there'll be a whirlpool after the boil, which takes 20 minutes to half an hour. We transfer the beer straight to fermenter. So usually I like the beer to be in tank by about 3 o'clock. Have another coffee.
You make it all sound so simple.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple.
It's not, though, is it? It's not.
You have your delays, you have your problems. But then, you know, by 3 o'clock, the beer's in tank. You've got to clean the kit to get tidied up. And you're kind of done and dusted by 4:30. And that's like kind of, you know, the perfect day for a brewer.
What's the worst thing about the whole process?
That is a good question. I think I'd have to go for maybe it's the unpredictability. There can be some sudden changes or sometimes equipment, you know, that we rely on a lot of different pieces of kit in the brewery, and just some days, you know, one day they might not want to work as they should. We do, you know, keep on top of the maintenance, the cleaning, but just some days they're not having it. So that's the only thing really, you know, like I say, I have the times in my head of where I want to be at each stage of the day. Sometimes it just it just naturally takes longer. And I think that's something that a lot of brewers can.
Yeah, I mean, my experience isn't vast, but I've seen brew days, and you can easily lose sight of your schedule, can't you? And it starts to take longer and longer and longer.
Absolutely, yeah. But then also that's, another part of the job that can be enjoyed as well, because when you're brewing, when you're doing the physical brewing, whether you're brewing a lager, a pale ale, a stout, the physical process is the same, really. You're just adding different ingredients.
Yeah.
So at least, if things do start going wrong, it keeps you on your toes. It makes each day a bit different.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being one repetitive process. So although I don't particularly enjoy adding an hour or two extra every day, at least it does make the days a bit different when it does happen.
So you're employed as a brewer. Would you ever want to set up your own brewery and do it all yourself? Or are you happy working for somebody else? It must cross your mind, should I set out on my own? It must do.
I think if you ever talk to a brewer and they say it doesn't cross their mind to have their own brewery, I think there's a good chance that they're lying there.
Yeah. I mean, it must cross your mind every day. Every day. Yeah,
that's sort of almost a dream, really, isn't it?
But do you think, when you really love doing something, and in your case it's making beer, do you think that if you then take it to the next logical step, which is having your own brewery, do you think there's the potential to spoil that love you have for making beer? Because all of a sudden, you're not just brewing beer, you're running a whole business, and there's a lot of other stuff going on as well.
The dream to have my own brewery and brew, be the boss, brew what I want when I want, and make them decisions is also then clouded by the fact that I don't have a clue what I'm doing on the other side of the business.
I mean, that hasn't stopped a lot of other breweries.
And, it is something you can learn, but I think, and with the climate, it's something that kind of has to be taken a bit more thoughtfully now, making that move. But I think for me, that would be many, many years away before that crosses my mind. It is a nice thought to have.
How old are you now?
25.
Yeah, plenty of time. But I think what happens is that that's the next step for a lot of people is setting up on their own, and all of a sudden they had that passion for making beer, but now they've got to deal with suppliers and social media and web shop orders, and everything falls at their door, and it almost is like, I used to really love doing this, and now I don't like it so much anymore.
And I think then it becomes a different sort of ball game when you're the one paying your wage. As an employee, my job is to go in and brew the beer and package the beer and whatnot, then I get paid for that.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had my own brewery,
you wouldn't be getting paid.
Go in, brew the beer and package the beer and wait to sell the beer and make sure I sold the beer.
Yeah.
And it becomes a kind of extra step and an extra bit of stress, I guess, in some cases.
Yeah, I think.
The ideal scenario is that you have a couple of friends and you don't go at it completely alone. You have, one friend who's a brewer, one friend who's done a bit of marketing.
Share the burden around a bit.
And then, you kind of have one person for each department, and you have someone who knows their department very well, so that then there's that less stress there. And
yeah, it's interesting. It'd be really fascinating to see, like in 10 years' time, what your situation is and whether you've taken the plunge or not.
I will have to touch base back in 10 years' time.
Yeah, speak to you in 2033. But yeah, there's a lot to be said for being an employee, enjoying what you do, taking the wage, going home, and that's it. Forget about it, rather than it dominating every minute of your life.
Yeah, because again, it's kind of like what we said before about when I kind of switch off from beer. It's also being able to come home and switch off from work, isn't it? Whereas if it's your own business, it would be harder to switch that off.
I don't think you ever do.
Yeah.
I really don't. Anyway, you mentioned Caps Off Tap Room earlier. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we have the tap room on site. It's just outside of the Bishop Auckland High Street area.
Handily positioned quite near the railway station as well, I noticed on Google Maps.
Barely, yeah. It's still a fair walk, but very doable.
Okay.
It'll take about 15, 20 minutes, which isn't too bad. It's a little bit out of it, but not a bad location either. And, we have all of our own beers on. We have some ciders on, occasionally guests. We have a fridge for takeaway cans, which again is our own, and guest stuff. And we do different events there as well. The quiz, we do comedy nights, we have live music on.
I get the impression then that it's almost part of the community. And I'm seeing more and more tap rooms that are doing this. They're part of that local community. And They're a bit of a hub for people to go to. Not just for the beer, but for the other stuff that's on there as well.
No, absolutely right. Yeah, it is. Because again, it's a place that's made for people to come together and share a beer. And, you know, we do get a lot of people in, but then we also get a lot of the same people in the same faces. And that's where they all kind of come to meet. And just like I say, you know, we've had so much going on. There's a lot coming up for Caps Off. We are opening up a bar on the High Street in Bishop Auckland, which they're currently still doing the building work on. So an opening date is to be confirmed. You know, when I've seen people in the tap room or out at events, you know, people come up to us and ask, you know, how's the building work going on the new place? When's the new place opening? People know about it and people care about it and people are excited to go there. So I think, you know, especially around Bishop Auckland, there is certainly a buzz about it and it get people excited for it. So
having your own pub to sell your own beers and it's the greatest model, isn't it? You know, you make your beer there, sell it in the tap room, sell it in a pub just down the road as well. It's perfect.
It's no secret that's why a lot of breweries are going down that route and opening up. You know, tap rooms have been around for a long time, but like, you know, similar in our case, a lot of breweries are out on an industrial estate or, you know, not somewhere maybe public transport friendly or anything like that. To have your own bar or your own pub in that environment where you do get the traffic down the high street. No, yeah, it is exciting stuff.
Nothing very romantic about sitting in a cold and dusty industrial unit in the winter, is there? That's horrible sometimes.
I know that's the other hand, isn't it? A lot of the tap rooms are great and they have loads of character, but it can be a seasonal thing. Brilliant in the summer.
You know, I've sat there with sort of hat, scarf, gloves. I love going to tap rooms, but in the winter it's hard to convince the rest of your family to go along with you when it's freezing cold in there. So yeah, pub sounds fantastic. Well, look, we've covered a lot of ground there, and I think that's been really, really informative. My second can is nearly gone. That also went down very well. Very good beers.
Thank you very much.
So before we go, what is in the pipeline beer-wise? You said you'd got some stouts on the way at some point.
Yeah, so Imperial Stouts, again, about 13%. I think you tried the one we had down in Birmingham.
I did, yeah. Very nice.
So that'll be a split of a straight-up Imperial Stout, and then we'll barrel-age some similar with the barley wines. And I just think as well, you know, I think we're just going to try and get out as much kind of just different styles as we can. The sour went down really well, so another sour's in the cards very soon. You know, just trying to make each beer better than the last is the main focus.
Brilliant. Well, I'm really excited to follow your progress and how it all goes for you. And all the best of luck. That's a really, really good chat. Thanks so much, Rhys.
Thank you very much, Dave. Really enjoyed that. All the best.
You're listening to Dave B and Dave D on Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
Regular listeners to Daftaboutcraft will know we have a feature with Sam, who is one half of the Copper Beach Brewing Company from Kidderminster. And recently when she was on, she was telling a story about how she woke up one morning with a car and then it was sold the same day and she hadn't got her car anymore and they got a Copper Beach truck instead. So the point being is that things happen very quickly sometimes. And Sam's with us now and she's got another story about how things happened quickly on one particular Tuesday recently. How are you doing, Sam?
Yeah, I'm all right now that everything's calmed down a bit.
Tell us about your very busy Tuesday that was completely unexpected.
I know, just when I think I'm running out of things to tell you, Dan does an old classic for me. So I was at work on a Monday and sort of halfway through the day, I came to my phone, I had all these messages from Dan, and then there was messages in our family group chat, and I've looked, and well, he'd basically signed me up to give a 30-minute talk at a Chamber of Commerce event the next day.
Yeah, you didn't know that public speaking was going to be part of this role, did you, when you started a business with Dan?
I mean, I'm no stranger to public speaking. I've done a bit of Amdram in my time, and, you know, I'm comfortable in front of a crowd, but I think 20 hours of notice before you're going to give a 30-minute presentation with PowerPoint.
Well, when you think that these little bits we do on the podcast, they're usually between 5 and 10 minutes, this is 3 or 4 times longer than that.
Yeah.
On your own.
Just constantly.
With people looking at you.
Yeah. And sort of trying to keep it interesting and trying to keep people engaged and stuff for 30 minutes, I think is quite difficult anyway. So I finished work at about 6 o'clock that night. I came home. We worked on a PowerPoint and went through the presentation, not without argument, I will add, until about, 10:30. And then I was like, right, well, that's it. Do you know what? Whatever comes out tomorrow comes out, because technically I was stepping in and doing them a favour because they'd had a speaker drop out. But do you know what? It went really well. It was lovely. It was a room full of really nice people. It was the Food and Drink Forum. So, there was representatives from different businesses, and they were all very kind. But the day didn't stop being crazy there, because from that, so, I forgot to add the best detail. I'm going, okay, so he'd arranged childcare for me, because that's Tuesday's normally my day to have our daughter.
Right.
So in all of this, he'd arranged childcare for me. And then I said, well, okay, well, what time am I dropping her off then? Oh, at 8 o'clock. All right, well, where have I got to be? Oh, it's in Lempster, which is about an hour's drive at that time.
So you didn't know where it was?
No, I didn't even know where it was. So obviously I drove to Lempster, did the event, left there at about 11:30, I think it was. And
I was just going to ask quickly, did anybody video it?
No, I don't think so.
I was going to say, I can just imagine Dan watching the video back and critiquing you.
Oh, he would
do that,
not
wouldn't
be
he?
worth his life, though.
But he would
at
do
that
it.
point. But he probably would do it. Oh, you missed that bit. Oh, why didn't you say that? You know what it's like when you give a presentation that you come out afterwards and you're like, oh God, I forgot to mention.
This, yeah.
Like I forgot so many really key things. But anyway, so I left there at 11:30, was due to obviously get home at 12:30. Now, my daughter has a nap at 12 for 2 hours, and she was with my mum. So I thought, oh my gosh, I've got 2 whole hours to myself. This is unheard of. But I'd also done the really kind wifely thing, because this event was held at a really lovely deli. It was the Draper's Lane Deli in Lempster. Really lovely, independently owned little place. And they put on this nice spread for breakfast. And on this spread was garlic mushrooms on toast, which is one of Dan's favourites. Mm-hmm. So I boxed a couple of pieces that had been left over up, and I thought I'll just quickly drop these to him at the brewery, and then I'll go and have a potter.
Whoa. You had 2 hours spare and you popped into the brewery. This is never going to end well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very religious, but they do say when you make plans, God laughs. And I really felt that day. So I got to the brewery probably about 12:20. And I said, I've bought you some mushrooms on toast. And he was doing this process, which is relatively new to his brewing process, called dropping the cone. I'm inverted commaing, which is where you essentially open a valve at the bottom of the fermenter and release the yeast and hop matter, something integral for the beer. And he was slap bang in the middle of this process when I got there. So I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. I'll film it. So I got my camera out, and if there was a Eubin frame for brewers, I sure as hell would have won that £250, because he was turning this valve and turning it. He was going, oh, come on. And you could see in the sight glass that it was moving ever so slightly, but it was, oh, God, he always does this. He's like, chatting away. And all of a sudden, it just exploded. And when you can't think quick enough when something like that happens. So he had his hand over the end of the pipe, which actually made it go further and wider. Yeah. And then rather than just turning it off at the main valve, he was trying to spin this little dial to turn it off, which was obviously never going to work.
It was, when you put this on your TikTok, you got a new TikTok account.
We have, yeah.
And, well, it's weird because we only started this TikTok account shortly before that happened.
Yeah, like 2-3 days before, yeah.
And there you are, you've already got content to put on there.
Classic TikTok. So I accidentally filmed the whole thing, and just the shot at the end is just Dan absolutely covered in hot matter and the brewery covered.
The best bit was his vocal reaction.
Which was funnier in slow-mo, right?
It was funnier in slow-mo. What did he say? What was it?
Well, I don't think it was a word, actually. I think it was literally just a... Oh!
Yeah. It's very good. Check out the TikTok and have a look at this.
Yeah, we're at the CB Brewco on TikTok. Check it out. It's hilarious.
But the look of sheer frustration on his face at the end of it, just sitting there in a whole pile of...
We called it hop vomit.
Hop vomit,
We've named it hop vomit.
Yeah, oh my God. Did he enjoy his mushrooms?
Do you know what he did? He bit into the mushrooms, which I think I can't remember if he ate them before or after the event, but he said, oh, these are really good.
I did wonder if maybe they'd got covered in a bit of hot vomit as well.
No,
so
luckily not. But I obviously spent the next hour and a half of my life
cleaning it up
because he was actually mid-brew. And he said, oh, thank God you turned up. And I thought, oh, yeah, thank God I turned up. Thank God I turned up to waste the only free time I've had in about 6 months to clean your hot vomit up.
Did you enjoy your 2 hours?
It was wonderful, yeah.
Next time you've got 2 hours, you know where you shouldn't go to, don't you?
Well, next time I've got 2 hours, I think I shall just keep it to myself and go and hibernate.
Daftaboutcraft.
Right, it's time to have a look at the beers we've been drinking since our last episode and decide which was our favourites. This is the bit that we call Tried and Tested. Dave, what beer have you enjoyed most?
There was quite a big shipment of US beer, it looked like, that went to pretty much all the distributors in the last probably 3-4 weeks. And it managed to make its way to Ipswich. And in amongst it was some Trillium, which has been on my bucket list along with Monkish. So I'm 50% the way there because I finally got to have Trillium in a can, not a collab where they've done something with a UK brewer. It was actual Trillium, which came from America. I think I've got 3 cans of it. I've had 2. And the thing is, I'm not necessarily picking... I've got Trail Side Up, which is the one I last had. I had the other one, which was cut in tiles. It was the Citra version. It's just really interesting because they're very good beers. They're not necessarily streets ahead of our stuff anymore. I wouldn't even say they're a street ahead. Like, it is a close run thing now, but it's just slightly different, ever so slightly different. So this Trailside is it's a 6.8% IPA. It's classically citrus, tropical stuff. They've got Strata in there. They've got Citra. It's not necessarily anything you've probably not had in the time you've had having craft, but it just, I don't know, it just lingers slightly that you can remember it. And maybe that's because it is, you think, oh yeah, it's a Trillium beer rather than...
I was going to say, what is it that sets it apart from your normal Citra and whatever beers you'd get over here?
I think, without sounding horrendous, and it is going to sound horrendous, it's mouthfeel. It's just that ever so slightly fuller, ever so slightly softer. I don't know quite how or why, but it is. Both of these beers, when I've had them so far, I've opened them up and I've started them and I've thought, oh yeah, okay, it's good. There's nothing wrong with this. And then by the end, it's just a bit like, oh yeah, this is actually quite good. Like, everything holds together a really long time. It's really sort of well made. It's well brewed. My Tried and Tested is Trailside by Trillium, but it's more just a...
What you're saying is it could be...
exposed to US beer, I think.
Yeah, it could be any one of those US beers you've had, but that's the one you picked.
Yeah, but the Trillium stuff has stood out. What about you?
Well, I'm staying at home, and they've already had a mention on this episode, and they're going to get another now, because my Tried and Tested is a beer from Missing Link. We know I'm a big Missing Link fan, but goodness me, have you had the dipper that I sent you from them, Chimpanzee?
Interestingly, I thought that might be the beer you were going to mention. I haven't, but I'm going to now, I reckon.
Goodness me, what a beer that is. It's an 8% double IPA. I don't think I could imagine a more perfectly balanced double IPA than that. It is superb. I can't pick any holes in it. I should have given it a full 5, actually, on Untapped. I think I gave it 4.7. That's probably a bit mean because it was and is perfect. So lovely and fruity, so well balanced, not cloying in any way, not too sweet. It's just spot on. And if you have it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Chimpanzee from Missing Link really is superb. And my other half, Lisa, she shared a can with me, and she doesn't even like double IPAs, and she loved it. You know, without a doubt, she said this is the best double IPA I've ever tried, which is high praise indeed, because if she doesn't like it, she'll let it be known.
I'm quite excited about that now. I kind of... Oh, yeah, I know what I'm having over the weekend. That's high praise, and I've certainly had a few dippers in my time, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good when you find a beer that really stands out. And I can, we always say this: if you can remember it a couple of weeks later, it was doing good things, and I can remember it perfectly. And I should say a big thanks to Rachel from Missing Link as well for sending that up to us. Absolutely spot on.
Good afternoon, Dave, and all the Daftaboutcrafters. Thanks for the nudge, Dave, to get this sorted. I did promise I wouldn't forget this time, but yes, of course, I managed to forget. Baby brain and all that. I'm out and about with the littlest one in the pram, so the ambient noise hopefully is trees rustling, but there's ambient swearing as well from the Sunday League game that's going on right opposite me at the moment. The Red and Blacks have just missed an absolute sitter of a penalty. Oh, but they're going to score now, though.
Always missed another setter. Anyway, right, on with the beers. Beers this week in from Full Circle and 2x2. We're not going to have too many in this week because the distributor has let us down with deliveries, which we expect to get some Play Brew in, which will probably be on next week, along with some Arbor and some others too, which I can't spring to mind. Oh, I think some Cloudwater, actually. Yeah, there is some Cloudwater. And that'll probably be it for the next couple of weeks because we'll be putting our Oktoberfest beers on as well. As many as you know from previous orders, you'll know that we have 10 specials, 10 bottle specials. We do that for 40 quid. Separately, they're often worth a little bit more, but in that mix-up is some Oktoberfest specials from some big German breweries, and obviously for some of the specials that actually also in Oktoberfest specials will be 4 cans or possibly 5 cans from UK breweries and their Feist beers or Fest beers. So far, we're definitely going to get Verdant in and probably New Barnes as well, and a few others. Again, we'll probably do them for 4 quid each as a set, otherwise it'll be a little more expensive than that separately. And also some special ones from Shirley and Curler, our favourite Rausch beer, plus a cherry cask version of that, which I think will be superb. So we're getting that in too. Not sure on the price on that yet, but probably won't be far off £3.50, 4 quid a bottle. One thing I forgot to mention before was the superb 2x2 can Grasshopper Pale. It's probably one of the best beers that I've had in a very, very long time. And it was only after I'd had it I found out that it's infused with CBD. Now, don't let that put you off at all. In fact, allow it to tempt you in, because by God, it's superb. Those of you who've had snake eyes before, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say it's absolutely beautiful, beautifully well balanced pale, and it tastes way higher than its ABV. This Grasshopper is very similar. It's a 4%. I think is it 4 or 5%? Anyway, sorry, I can't check. I'm out and about still, but it's absolutely delightful. Brewed in collab with Karma Coast, who do all things CBD up here. But by God, you need to try it. I don't care where you get it. If you get it from me, great. If you don't get it from me, get it from somewhere else, just have it. If you love hoppy beers, you need to try this. And the other thing I forgot to mention was, of course, as normal, first time orderers, you get 10% off with the code HOPS10 at the checkout. As always, you can find out loads of stuff about us on our website, hopsathome.co.uk. You can join the mailer too, which comes out every week. And you can find us on social media on Hops at Home. I've been Andy, this has been Hops at Home. See you later. Bye.
As we said at the start of the episode, this is number 50, our half century, and we were thinking about all the things we've done since we started, and I think one of the most satisfying things is getting people more and more interested in craft beer. Perhaps people who didn't know much about the scene, and they've listened to the podcast and they've learned a bit more, and they've tried experimenting with different drinks and got to really like craft beer. And I've got somebody opposite me now who this applies to very, very much, and it's one of my neighbours, in fact. Welcome to the podcast, Elise.
Thank you.
How's it going?
All right.
Now, when we first met you didn't really know what craft beer was, you didn't drink craft beer.
No, not at all.
What did you used to drink?
Gin and tonic, nice glass of wine, red or white.
And if you're in the pub and you had to have a lager, what would you drink?
Oh, it would be just standard Carling, Carlsberg, Bud, yeah.
And what do you drink now, if you can, when you're out and about?
I do like a pale ale.
Look at this.
Hazy one, and yeah.
But you've also started ordering craft beers yourself now as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So your Deas, your Attics, you love all that now.
I do.
And I think that's partly down to us, isn't it, really?
Oh, gosh, definitely. Absolutely.
So we're not going to say you've listened to all the episodes of the podcast and stuff, but you've listened to some of them.
Yes. And
we go out and about with you. And now, you know what you want. And if you see Dea steady rolling man somewhere, you're straight to that. None of you Carlsberg anymore.
No. And not always a Dea, to be honest now. I think I'm very good at experimenting with other ones. So.
Well, that is true for a while. Mm. You'd hone in on what you knew, your steady rolling man or your intuition from Attic.
I think that was my first, to be honest. Yeah.
But now you're going wild. Now you're trying all sorts of stuff.
I am, yes. I think you know my motto, David. It's I like what I know. I know what I like, or the other way around, whatever. But yeah.
And you've started now. You'll have a sour. We even got you on a stout recently as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so keen, but I do try. I will try.
I did foist a saison upon you recently, which you recalled out a little bit.
Yes, I did that.
But I think the point we're making is that craft beer is accessible to everybody. You don't have to be anybody with any knowledge or anything. No. If you want to try a craft beer, there's nothing to stop you. And it's not. Did you find it intimidating when you first went out there and you've got all these different beers? Because we've been to tap rooms and micro bars and stuff.
I suppose not intimidating, but you do get a little bit overwhelmed. We think, oh my goodness, what am I choosing? What on earth is all this? But it's just having a go.
So for people listening who might listen to this podcast but don't experiment very much with going out and trying different beers, what would you say to people? Just
try something that you think, actually that sounds as if I like it. Because once I started to have those beers, and then I go out and I look at what's on there, I think that sounds really good. I'm looking at the flavours, I'm looking at what's in there, and looking at their name, and I think that's what I'll go with. So that's the way to do it for me.
And now when you go out to a bar and there's like a dozen taps, you can look down there and you know what you can pretty much see what you're gonna like from those.
Yeah, straight away.
See, so we've achieved a lot here on this podcast.
You're impressed, aren't you?
I'm very impressed. But also, something I really wanted to talk to you about was recently you went to Texas in America.
I did.
And before you went there, you said to us, "Nah, it's not going to be a beer holiday. We're not going to do loads of tap rooms and stuff." How many tap rooms did you go to?
I think my husband and I, we counted about 14, 15.
And how long were you there for?
2 weeks.
So it was at least one every day?
Yes, so we did 2, 3 sometimes in a day.
You did? You kept sending me pictures of them, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was lovely.
You were very jealous, weren't you?
I was. But what styles of beer did you try when you were out there? Did you stick mainly to your pales?
No, I did have, I went to sort of IPAs because sometimes that was all that they had.
Yeah.
A sort of hazy IPA. And then other times I might choose a blonde because, again, there was not that choice. And then I'd go somewhere and try another blonde.
When you compare craft beer in America to as it is here, is it just more and more, is it prolific over there? It seemed to me that everywhere you went there was several craft beer tap rooms or bars to go to.
I think it is, yes.
I've read a lot of articles recently about people saying, oh, what's the future of craft beer? Where's it going to go? But if you look at the scene in America and compare it to here, do you still think there's a lot of expansion that we can do over here?
Definitely. And obviously America is big, isn't it? It's huge. And Texas is a massive state. So I suppose if you compare the size, but I definitely think there's that scope.
Places you went to, is it just beer there, or is it food and beer? Is it an experience to go there, or are people, what are people going there for, do you think?
Big cities, you tend to have a bit of both. There's food and there's drink, and I remember we went to a place in Fredericksburg, and that was, I think it's got this tag of being the oldest brewing company in Texas, Fredericksburg Brewing, and that had a lot of food on the go, and it was a whole experience. You go and you could have your flights and you could have whatever you wanted, and then they kind of bring these massive portions of food. But again, it's varied.
And I get the impression you could sort of bed in here and stay there for hours and hours and hours in a lot of these places.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously you've got live music.
Yeah.
They've got all that going on as well.
Is that a big part of it, the live music? Was that everywhere or just in some of the bigger places? Or
the towns tend to have more of those live events, and then you've got to go to certain places in big cities that hold music events on. Now,
while you were there, you sent me a picture of the most amazing view, and that was taken from a brewery, wasn't it?
It was.
Remember which one it was?
It's called Oasis Texas Brewing Company.
Just explain that outlook. You were sitting there with a drink, and what could you see?
The journey there was... It was a little bit out of Austin, Texas, and we travelled for about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and you kind of go up into the hills and you arrive, and then you go in and you overlook Lake Travis. So if you can imagine, you're on a balcony in the blazing sunshine, and you overlook this beautiful, huge lake, because there's lakes everywhere. It's absolutely stunning.
And do you think you'd have found yourself in places like that if you hadn't have started to get into craft beer over here?
We would never have gone there I mean, we found places, but I mean, we were fortunate when we were over there that we've got a couple of friends that are also into, craft beer.
I hope you told them about the podcast.
And yes, we have. And they took us there because they'd lived there for a number of years.
Right.
So we would never have found that at all, and a couple of other places as well. However, Jason, my husband, he was very good at finding the places as well. He'd go on to Google and find it. You know what he's like. So we were, but that particular place we would never have known.
It's interesting though. So getting into craft beer, it's widened your horizons with what you want to drink, but it's also taken you to places you would never have gone to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Literally,
yeah.
So considering you're now such an expert on the scene in Texas and you went to a lot of places, do you want to give us your favourite breweries, maybe your top 5 breweries that you went to while you were over there?
Top 5, okay. So number 5, a place called Barking Armadillo. It's a small place.
Gotta love these names.
I know, it's great, isn't it? A place in Georgetown, which is about half an hour outside of Austin. That was great. And I did have a couple of IPAs there, but I tried a mead as well.
Okay. Oh, nice.
That was quite potent.
Yeah, I
did
bet.
like that. Very nice, very sweet, yes. So that's a great place. And small, lots of merchandise on sale as well, but very busy on a Sunday afternoon.
And that was the thing you noticed everywhere. Everywhere had loads of merchandise, didn't they?
Yeah. You could get T-shirts, vests, all sorts.
Yeah.
Caps. So coming in at number 4 is a place that I really liked. I like the vibe and everything. It's a place in just outside Fort Worth, in a place called Stockyards, and the brewery, or the place is called Second Rodeo Brewing, and there I had an apricot heifer, I think we say.
Yeah,
I really liked that. That was a bit different. And there wasn't as much choice for me there.
Right.
I think Jason had a lot more choice there, but very busy place, very much like the cowboy, cowgirl, live music, very, very busy for a Saturday evening, but cool place to go to. Yeah.
Number 3?
Number 3 is Yard House. I think I mentioned it before, and that's in San Antonio. Well, not just a bar, lots of food there, burgers. But again, the menu was immense. Great choice, really good choice. And you could actually get the yard of ale.
Oh,
if you
really?
wanted. Yes, there were quite a few people having those yards. So it's good to see.
Do people actually do that in one?
I didn't see them in one, but they were having yards.
That sounds like a challenge, that to me sometimes. Right, who comes in at number 2?
Number 2, I have put as the Oasis Texas Brewing Company. Probably mainly because of the beautiful view.
Yeah.
You can't wish for anything better. That it was stunning, and they had a good choice.
We'll have to put that picture up on our Instagram to show people what that view was like.
And coming in at the top, I have put a place called Holdout, which for me was a really cool place. But I think the reason I liked it the most was because I got beers there which really reminded me of home.
Oh, nice.
They were so good. They were very good. They were quite expensive, but they were very good. The one I had there was called First Light, and Jason had a liquid television, but that's a really good place to go. Small place, not easily found, but we did find it. Lots of choice and just really good beer. Lots of merch as well.
What I love about this is that us sort of craft beer geeks over here, we get really excited about American breweries, the big ones, your Tree Houses, your Monkish, all those sort of breweries, other half. But there's so many tiny little ones that I've never heard of any of those you've just mentioned. There's so much there to explore. Yeah. Fantastic. If you had to pick somewhere that you've really enjoyed going back over here, what's one of your favourite places to go to?
Now you put me on the spot, David.
I know.
I did like going to the Daya Brewery.
Yeah,
that was fun. That was. I like going to Hop Vault in Stourbridge.
Yeah.
Nothing Bound. Great place to go to. Beautiful. And
it's amazing. So you're listing off these places, but we've known each other for 3 years?
Yes, roughly.
And you've started getting into beer more in the last sort of 18 months or so, probably.
Yeah.
But now you're reeling off all these places.
I could reel off more.
Look how
New
far
Invention,
you've come.
Love going there.
New Invention, yeah, it's another one. So
really, really open to it and enjoy it.
So what would be your message to anybody out there who's just getting into craft beer? I think, yeah, this could be for me. What would you say to them?
Definitely. Do it, try it, go different places. Helps you meet new people, something to talk about. I mean, my experience is I'll go to work and I tell people about where I've been and, share the podcast with them.
And you've even got a Daftaboutcraft beer mat on your desk at work.
I do, yes, I do.
Look at that, amazing.
I know.
Well, look, I hope your craft beer journey continues and you carry on enjoying your beers. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for, opening my eyes and my palate.
Not a problem. Thank you very much indeed for listening to episode 50 of Daftaboutcraft, and thanks to all our guests, thanks to everybody who took part in this episode, really appreciate it. You can catch us again in 3 weeks' time with episode 51, so that'll be out the week beginning the 25th of September, and we'll see you then.
Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.